Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Sorry, I was just fussing over a few decks here. Decks, books, little inserts in decks. Okay, so I've got another deck on the table today. And honestly, I didn't realize how many Tarot de Marseille decks I actually had. Um, And I think what I would like to do when we get through the court card series is have a good look at my entire Tarot de Marseille library and kind of put it in order. So the deck that's on the table right now, hello Arya, welcome, namaste, is the Gassman Tarot. And this particular one, where's my little leaflet? This is an Everno deck. This one is, so Gassman was born 1766. So this tarot, looking for the date. It should be on the box. Anyway, we'll figure that out. I'm going to put all these decks in order, and I would love to go through them. Hi, Dee. Welcome. Okay, so if you're new, my name is Sadhana, and I am no expert in Tarot de Marseille. This is well, I have studied it somewhat. This is a year-long journey of going through decks and cards, and primarily it is about conversation. Welcome, Jennifer, namaste. So there's a couple of episodes on each of the suits, and now we're doing some episodes on the court cards. And eventually we will get to the major arcana. And maybe I will pause and do decks before I get into the major arcana, so that way I have a better orientation for the majors. That might seem like a good thing to do. So I am a tarot reader and a lover of decks and art and everything metaphysical and arty and historic, and just really loving having these cards in hand. So welcome to the conversation. So today's conversation is about the Suit of Cups and these beautiful, brilliant colors. This is the Gassman Tarot. And let's zoom in a little bit. There we go. So like the other suit, so we have looked at the suit of Beton, and now we're going to look at the suit of Coupe. And we will compare, contrast, directions. And this is interesting because now it's the king that's looking the other way. We'll have to look at eyes and contrast and compare across decks to see what the primary energy is. So let's talk about Suit of Cups. What is it? What does it mean? What does it represent? I think there's a lot of heart and vulnerability in this suit. And with that comes a huge range of every suit just carries so much. When we wear our heart on our sleeve, we can be naive, we can be tremendously vulnerable, and we also have this willingness to be open. And I think feel. We are to feel. It's about allowing that emotional intelligence to be a part of our experience. And to understand that water. When I think of this suit, I think of water. I think of how much of our body is water. And even though we aren't necessarily aware of how influenced we are by it, it drives everything. Like this, to me, this is a really important suit. It is, it's almost like it is, I know it's not the river, but in a way it is the river. It's what moves everything. And I know we can make an argument for that the fire drives everything. And I don't know, I'm elementally looking at the suits to me is really, really powerful. And this is one of those suits that we cross over from this idea of, well, how are feelings connected to intuition? And I think another discussion that's really interesting with the court cards is where to place the counselors and the social workers and these sorts of advisors in, as well as the psychics and the astrologers and those sorts of energies and faces in the tarot. And I think your contribution into those questions would be greatly appreciated today. Okay, so we are looking at the element of water. And interesting, in this deck, we clearly see the water in two of the cards. And in this deck, I've noticed that in Triomphe de la Luna, the cup is actually uncovered. But in all of these cards, the cup is covered. And that is not the case once this suit begins to evolve through the ages. So maybe that's a good place to start, actually. Why in the court cards is the cup covered in all of them? And just think about that, because when you think about like a Rider-Waite-Smith, the queen is the one that has the covered cup. And we have the metaphor of Pandora's box. We also have this idea of the sacred being very much part of this suit, these courts, these honors. The Grail Knight, the Grail quest, the spiritual quest, whether that is an internal one or a knight actually going out on a journey. You know, we have all of these associations here. And so why over time did the cup become uncovered? And I'm sure in David's book it speaks to that. But well, let's have a look at some other cards. So that's one question I want to look at today. Is there water in the Queen and the King in any of your decks? So we'll look at that one as well. The facings, I think, are important. And this poor king, he's the one that primarily is looking away. And I think that speaks... Did we do the kings already? We talked about the King of Cups. I think this is such a very difficult card to read. So where do we begin with all of this? And did I greet you all? I'm going to say hello again. Welcome to Aria and Jen and Dee. Thank you for all being a part of this conversation. The King of Cups. I find I have so much sympathy or empathy for this court, in that it's part of a family and an energy that can be truly overwhelming. Emotional energy has a weight to it. And if you think about just the density and the weight of water, and the more awareness one has of one's feelings, the weight that carries. And the way the King of Cups is often portrayed in contemporary decks is in shadow. And why is that? I think it's because it's a really difficult energy to navigate. Once you know everything, you can't unknow it. And so you make choices about how you're going to deal with it. And I think it just speaks so powerfully that the Queen fully embraces, and it's almost as if she's putting a spell on the cup the way she's looking at it. Whereas the King is like, yeah, I know you're there. I know you're all there. I've heard you before. Oh my God, not this again. I've been, it's like, it's in the King's peripheral vision. It's in every cell of the King's being. But as a king, the king would rather be doing other things. And so there's this sense of avoidance. I don't want to look in the cup. But if you come and you sit on my lap, granddaughter, or the family wants me to pay attention here, that king has a wealth of story and information to share. He is not protected by the canopy. He's lived it all. It's fully exposed. And you may have other reasons why the king is not looking at the cup, and we'll look at that in others as well too. The Cavalier. This also, I find this such an interesting card. Could we talk about the distance of the eyes from the cup? I think that's so funny. I mean, we haven't talked about a lot about the humor in these cards as well too. I wonder when I read this, Dee, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, he does. He has to make a choice between does he have to make a choice between emotional intelligence, the practical, between it like heavy weighs the heart that wears the crown. I mean, we could come up with a different expression for this particular king. There's some really funny faces and eyes and glances in the tarot honors. And I think that lightness and sense of humor is also really important in reading the Tarot de Marseille. The Page of Cups has the cup literally right in his face and is saying what? It's almost as if this reminds me of a story where I was hit in the forehead with a sacred object in India. It looks like he's going to bash himself in the head with this cup. Whereas the Knight of Cups is looking at it kind of dubiously, looking at it with a side glance. So I think that's really interesting to see what each of the honors approach is to that particular vessel. Notice too how that knight is carrying the cup. They're all holding it in a slightly different way. Right hand, right hand. They're all holding it in the right hand. Are they going to do something? Are they going to do something with the container, with the cup, with the heart, with the emotions? And D reminds us Christ asks for the cup to be taken away. So not only is the cup in the right hand, the Queen holds it around the stem. Let's look at this carefully. This one's actually easy to look at. Can we see the page? And the page is holding it underneath as well, too. Isn't that interesting, the way that it's being held? Almost as if the knight and the page aren't allowed to hold it in this way. They hold it as with some reverence. Now, how far could that knight actually ride holding the cup in this way? And when I read Dee's comment, now the stuff in the cup is safely contained, let's leave it be, I'm thinking, is there a wonder if it's going to spill open, or has there been an advisor that is put a spell on the cup so the cup stays sealed and contained, because we don't want that contents spilling over. Arya, the valet and knight are moving while holding the cup before them. Perhaps they are wary of spilling the contents, right? But they're holding it in a most precarious way. Remember, the page is a messenger delivering. Maybe that page is simply wondering what is in that cup. What is this? Is this the page who goes and breaks the seal on the correspondence because he's been paid by his advisor to pass on the message and to spy? Is he able to look into the cup and intuit what are the contents of that letter, that message? What do you think about the evolution of the Knight of Cups? I have referred a couple of times to the Slow Tarot. This is a really brilliant card, the Knight of Cups in the Slow Tarot. It is, the knight is riding a hippocampus, a mythological hippocampus. And the knight is riding forward and then also looking back on a fairy tale type castle. Hi, Kristen, welcome. And I just think about that play on the way that we process emotions in the brain. And if you read age into the tarot, this is, and what is it? It's like 27 or 28 years old that the brain becomes fully developed. Maybe one of you can look that up. So at a young age, this is they're just not able to process it. And I'm not sure if in traditional Marseille, sorry, I just need to reply to something, that there were ages that were assigned here. Okay, now what was I think D, the video that was shared, that I shared in the Facebook group, that talked about the evolution of the Tarot de Marseille. That story really got me thinking about, because we always seem to, so in Kristen's comment, right, we're skewing to Christian symbology and Catholic symbology. We're, after all, in Italy at the beginning of this story, before the tarot comes to France. But if we go back further, where these cards came through, it wasn't so much Christian symbology. So I think we're able to open to this interpretation. And yeah, Laura's video link. And I just wonder, okay, here's what I want to say. If the Christian symbology, if the mythology of the Christian, can I say that? If the mythology of the Christian symbology is speaking to you in a reading, and you can draw metaphor and lessons from that, then let's let that come through, especially if you are familiar with these stories and biblical references. If you're not, then you have a whole other branch of mysticism that you can dive into in this suit. I just feel like in this suit there are so many ways and possibilities to bring connections. And the reason I was mentioning the hippocampus thing is because sometimes we can use the clever play on words, the clever play on mythology that appears in cards to teach and to talk and to share and to uncover. If you are not sure why a particular chord is showing up in a reading. And Aria says sometimes mid to late 20s. And it's really quite shocking. I was recently actually in a course, and I seem to remember, maybe it was the male brain, it was like very late, like closer to 28 years old. And traditionally in the tarot, these page and knights were both, fairly young men. So I wonder if we can read something into that. All right, and one more thing, and then I'll put some more cards on the table. What about the clothing in this suit? So we're looking at water. We're looking at a flowing energy, something that is not bound, and yet it is safely contained within the cups in these quartz. Is the clothing a response to something in this character? And if you notice, this Queen of Cups also has her knees apart, like the Queen of Wands, and that changes in later decks. It's only the Queen of Wands that has her knees apart. And when I'm looking, so I also have the Riv Salt, I want to call it Riv So, and I don't know why, Riv Salt deck. I would say she's pregnant, and I know that she is often pregnant in more contemporary decks. Okay, let's go to your talks here, your discussion. Everything is relevant to the individual reader. We all bring different things to the tarot. The question will find the correct reader. So there's I actually, Perry, I like that as an adjective. And welcome, Perry, by the way. Relaxed, ease, an ease of ease of being, an ease of being. So this particular tarot, I believe, is, so this is Francois Gasman, 1840. It is right there on the top. And then the Rousseau tarot is what year? 1713. So we can compare. So these two look quite similar. And again, I will spend more time on this when I compare and contrast these decks. So this is the Chevalier and the Cavalier. And then I suppose what we could also spend some time looking at the language changes as well too, from through the years. So we have longer hair and perhaps a wig. I don't know. I mean, look at these two. They're quite different. Can you check your decks? And so now, okay, so this is earlier. This one is earlier, and this one's not covered. It doesn't look like it's covered to me. And it appears that he's also holding it this way. What I was noticing is this looks like water. This looks like land. And I don't know if I'm seeing something in there or if I'm just seeing a flow of energy, but it looks like there's some water in the cards. This headgear is quite different with the two valets. And it almost looks as if there is the scarf of the valet is draped over the cup itself. But what is consistent is that it's only the king that's not looking at the cup. Pages have their hats on or off depending on the age of the deck. Okay, thank you for that, Dee. Okay, what is the page holding in the left hand? Is that may be their hat. Yeah, I think the page, see there? The page is holding their hat. So does that say anything to you? What is that hat's off? Can I go out on a limb here? Left hand holds the cup's cover. An aspect of respect. Can we go a little bit esoteric here? So what happens if the crown is not covered and the page is the youngest? So the queen, right, has a canopy over her. The king has quite an elaborate hat. The page takes off their hat. And this is just me. This is me and my meditation and yoga and stuff. I'm just thinking the page is young. The page takes off his hat. The page has as a younger being, has a connection to spirit. And I know sometimes pages in readings can appear to be just that youthful and open energy. And when I think of Page of Cups, and I know lots of pages of cups who are 30, 40 years old, they have that baby skin and that almost, it looks like they will be youthful in perpetuity. Honestly, I think it just represents it. For me, it's an openness. But yes, as they were going forward to deliver, so let's say the cup is the message. The cup is the love letter. They are delivering the love letter. They're delivering the message. And they approach somebody senior. They're going to take off their hat as a gesture of respect. But I'm really curious because it seems to me like the page is covering the cup with a scarf. I like Arya's comment. Page has his scarf blowing in the wind, as though nature conspires to feed curiosity. That's beautiful. Well, honestly, I don't think. Maybe, actually, that's a good point. Maybe they aren't even allowed to see the goblet. But in this one, the page is looking deeply at. Oh, I really like this deck. Love the colors. Deeply looking at the goblet. Okay, so the Conver deck, which is the Jodorowsky Come one. The Queen and the Knight. Look at the goblet. Covered, uncovered. Uncovered. And so the scarf is doing something similar in this one. And the kings look kind of similar. The kings look very similar. Okay, I'm really intrigued with this grip versus this grip. I think it says a lot. I think it says that they don't know how to hold it. They're holding it tentatively. Maybe they've been told to hold it this way. You certainly couldn't carry something. You'd certainly have to move more slowly carrying something this way. And look at the size of the cup that the page is carrying. Look at the size of the cup. It's long and it has a narrow narrow stem, so it goes in like an hourglass, versus the Knight, that has this short stemmed goblet. And the only one that has a lid on it is in the Gassman, and we'll have to compare that later on too. Okay, let's go to Aria. King and Queen are claiming the cup is mine. The Page and Knight are in service, not claiming it as their own. That makes perfect sense. And isn't it fun that we can have these logical explanations and also create more sort of esoteric explanations? And of course, we've all read a variety of resources on these cards. But to stop and to look at the cards, it's so interesting. Dee says that her noble cup looks like a huge, Page cup looks like a huge lamp. Okay. Almost like it would be in like in an Aladdin story. Okay, let's look at a couple of contemporaries. Let's put these back. Valet, Cavalier, Chevalier. Okay. One of you wanted to look at these ones, so let's look at the new choice. So in the new choice, the king is also looking away. Have you ever seen one of those YouTube videos where they talk about how the English royalty has to sit and how they need to position their legs and so forth? It looks to me like intentionally she's drawing her knees together because that's the way she's supposed to sit. And I think this is funny because this is such a free, I don't know what you want to say, sort of free sexuality tarot. No horse in this one. And the Knight is carrying the lid of the cup. I think it would be really fun to, oh, sorry, this is the Page, the valet. That's the valet. It looks like it's the lid rather than the hat. It is cool, isn't it, Kristen? Yeah. Okay, so we have, are you looking at the cup? How are you holding the cup? How do your clothes reflect your response to cups, water, energy? What are you wearing on your head? And I think that Cavalier de Coupe in the new choice is very much in alignment with a lot of sort of the freeness, the vulnerability and the open love energy of the Knight of Cups, the Knight of Cups as Romeo, the Knight of Cups as, and it's interesting. I was reading in one of my books today about how the Romeo energy was in the Page of Cups, and I guess that could be in either of them. Yeah. The topless king. It's like, yeah, I definitely don't need my armor. I don't need my armor. And okay, I'm going to just grab that deck and see if any of the kings have armor in New Choice. Do I have the deck open? Yes, I do. I know armor is it's a really important symbol in the tarot, and the degree of armor, the degree of protection. So the King of Swords does not have armor, which is funny. I guess he doesn't need armor because he's not the one that goes out to fight. And the King of Denier, he has more. Remember, we were talking about clothing and the luxuriousness of clothing. He's the one that's most dressed. But also really relaxed. And how many guys do you know when they cross their legs like that can have that open-hipped gesture? Not have the knee up at their right ear. The King of Wands is fully exposed, practically fully exposed. Yeah, he's not covering much up. That's the King of Wands. So the only one with a little bit of clothing in this deck is the vest on the King of Denier, but that makes sense because of that, the luxuriousness and the richness of the clothing. I love that, D. Yeah. Aria makes a comment about the New Choice. Ooh, okay. So shall we look at the tattoos? Heart tattoo. Heart tattoo. Heart tattoo. Great observation. I'll never forget, I laughed so hard the first time I read the Jodorowsky book. And it reminded me a little bit of when I read WTF is Tarot. I love the way that, remind me of her name, writes about the court cards and gives them so much personality and attitude. And I think one of the greatest things that any of us can do as a reader is to speak from the voice of the court card. If you're doing for a reading for yourself, look at their body language. Look at how they're paying attention to the thing they're holding. What are they, and then beyond what they're looking at, what is the next card that they're looking at? The way they cover up or open their sexuality, the flow of the hair. Like, this is a pretty flowy suit. And this dude is riding a purple horse, right? What color is the horse in the other ones? Oh, this one's also a blue horse. They're all, so it's blue. Okay. Shall we look at Trionfi della Luna? King of Cups is quite different here. So the Page of Cups is just a drunk. Shall we say, drunk on emotion. The belly is full. You know, the Knight of Cups looks very stoic. Oh my goodness. And why does the Knight of Cups need armor? You would, I know a lot of people love this deck, and I don't want to say anything bad about this deck, but I've never really connected with it. Deviant Moon a little bit more. Now look at what's happening here in the Queen. The way that the energy from the sun is being collected in the Queen's cup. And this deck seems to have sort of no consistency with the facings. The Queen and the King are going one way, and the Knight and the Page are going the other way. Yeah, that Knight looks scared to death about what it is that what he's delivering or seeking out. Okay, and then the what time is it? Let's look at one more. I'll see if I can get out another one more as well too. This is the Tarot of Ozarks. So this seems to be consistent, and I'm noticing the green pants seem to be consistent. And I think we talked about this one last time. I think this is such a funny card, the way that Queen is so high up. Now this is inconsistent because this is the only knight that we've seen holding the cup in this fashion. Even the Trionfi della Luna holds the cup from underneath. Yeah, you're right, Jen. He has an armored heart. Something here also not sitting well with me, and that is the degree of red in this suit, in this deck. It's very red. Now, some would say red is passion, but this isn't really a suit of passion. That's the fire suit. What do you think? What do you think? I was checking out the what's it called? The cute one. That's fairly consistent. He's looking away. This one is sticking to the sort of the tradition, holding the cup underneath. Okay, so here, this is really interesting. Okay, take a look at your deck. So here again, we have the scarf that's covering the top, but it looks like he's, instead of holding his hat, he's got the lid off the cup. I don't know where the Queen of... Oh, it's because I took out the Queens when we did the Queen episode. Okay, so this Queen seems fairly consistent with all the cards. Wow. Well, I think these preliminary discussions are just a great way to begin to notice things that we will continue to develop in these discussions. Yeah. You're referring to Trionfi della Luna. It's a hillbilly tarot. They don't hold to royal European norms. That's the one you mean? Yeah. Is there any visible water in these cards? Okay, let's look. Let's look. So let's start with the valet. Okay, Triomphe della Luna has water. Now, this is rather consistent, this dry. Oh, okay. Oh, sorry, not Triomphe. Sorry, no visible water. No Triomphe. No, Tarot de Ozark is hillbilly. Ah, got you, got you. Okay. So I see water in the Gasman. And then if I look at, again, Triomphe della Luna, I'm looking at the Knights now. Gasman and Triomphe della Luna have water. And then if I go through the Queens, I don't think there's any except for Triomphe della Luna. It's the only one that has water. Unless you see that as water, this little bit of blue that's here. Isn't that interesting? Because in the King of Cups, in contemporary decks, he's often on a throne floating in the water. So again, Triomphe della Luna is the only one with water. Well, again, there is a little tiny bit of water maybe here. So I leave that to you to decide if there's water or no water. Yeah. You're welcome, Perry. Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I will continue to pay more attention to this. So what the plan is going to be is we will have next week, we will do the Knights, the Cavalier or the Chevalier. And then we will do the épée, the sword suit. So we have 4 more weeks of court cards. Okay. And then I think I'm going to review all of my decks and spend several weeks and go through them in chronological order. My limited library here. Okay. I don't think the suits were elementally assigned until the weight deck. But until the Golden Dawn. No. No, because the playing cards all had elemental assignment. All of the historical playing cards assign elements to the suits, and it's certainly not consistent. And this is one of the things that I'm studying right now, because I'm also studying the history of playing card cartomancy. And while it is not consistent, yes, there is always an element that is associated with them. So how that all fits in is yet to be discovered. So let's just keep the conversation going. Okay. I will see you next week for the Cavalier, Chevalier, and any other derivation we can find for the Knights. All right. Thank you so much for contributing to the conversation. Namaste.